This is chapter 49, verses 9 and 10. If two parties of the believers quarrel, make peace between them. Then if one of them does wrong to the other, fight that which does wrong, till it return to Allah's command. Then if it returns, make peace between them with justice and act equitably. Surely Allah loves the equitable. The believers are brothers, so make peace between your brothers and keep your duty to Allah that mercy may be shown to you. In recent years, we've had a lot of uprisings, troubles, fighting going on in many parts of the Muslim world. We know about Libya and Tunisia and Egypt, and Syria and Iraq, and the list goes on. And the odd thing is that in clear violation of this verse of the Holy Quran, it is not the Muslims themselves who've tried to sort out their problems. There have always been outsiders and others who've tried to make peace between them or bring some kind of order out of disorder to the countries that are inhabited by the Muslims. And you see, I find it very odd that whenever it is that we talk about implementing the Sharia or changing our constitutions or laws which are prevalent in the countries where Muslims are in a majority, all that we ever talk about is making it a law for people to go and say their 5 daily prayers. And that puzzles me because I ask people, when God commands you to say your 5 daily prayers and you don't do it, why would you do it if a collection of 500 or 600 human beings tells you that you have to go and say your daily prayers? I do not understand the logic in this argument. If you believe in God, you believe in the Holy Quran, and you say you're a Muslim, why do you need a collection of 500 or 600 people to tell you that you need to go and say your 5 daily prayers? And even those things which are part of the law of many countries, Muslims don't do them. The paramount among those things is, of course, zakat. Every Muslim is required to give zakat not on his income, but on his savings. Whatever he has left over after he has met his essential needs, let's not even say essential, after he has met his needs, he needs to pay 2.5% in charity on that amount. I know that, you know that, the whole Muslim world knows that. There didn't need to be a law written in some constitution or in tax laws of any country for you to do it. All you had to do was, at the end of the year, look at your savings account, take 2.5% in case of MDs, and give it to our central Anjuman, which most Ahmadis in Pakistan, I have to say, actually do. But when a law was brought in, making it compulsory, people found all kinds of excuses not to pay it. First, our brother Shia Muslims were up in arms. They actually surrounded Islamabad and said, this is Sunni jurisprudence. We do not agree with it. We are not going to pay zakat. So the government had to retract. And then what happened was that people started going to court. This is Sunnis. They started going to court and they started saying, well, what is implemented is Hanfi interpretation. I'm not a Hanfi, but everyone knows that all Pakistani Sunnis follow the Hanfi interpretation of Islamic law. There are hardly any who follow Maliki or Hanbali or whatever else there is. But these people were swearing an oath on the Holy Quran and telling the court, well, I'm a Shafi, I'm a Hanbali, I'm a Maliki, I'm not a Hanafi. This interpretation is in accordance with fiqh Hanfi jurisprudence. Why should I pay it if Shias are exempt? So they were exempt. The point I'm making is, if you don't want to do it, you're going to find 1,001 excuses and reasons why you're not going to do it. And to satisfy your conscience, you're going to say, oh well, I was within the remit of the law. I used an escape clause in the law not to do it. But the point I'm making is, what Islam says we should implement in our lives is much greater than these few things that we always insist should become a part of our laws and constitution, etc. And even when they are, we don't abide by them. This verse of the Holy Quran, or these two verses of the Holy Quran, are a command from God for Muslims to establish their own system of peacemaking, of arbitration. And this applies to everything. In case of a husband and wife where there is a dispute, it's specifically mentioned in Surah Nisa. But in employment law, when there's a dispute with your employer, well, this is two parties of believers, they're quarreling. So try and make peace between them. So all the systems that we see around, whether they are national or international, which try and reconcile warring parties or disagreeing parties by mutual consultation and arbitration, are based on these two verses of the Holy Quran. League of Nations was one, although this refers to believers, specifically Muslims. But what was League of Nations? An international body was set up. What was its purpose? If disputes arise between governments, between countries, between nations, rather than fight them out as they had done during the First World War, to try and create a forum where they could sit down and discuss and come to some kind of an agreement. United Nations, the World Court, all of these bodies and organizations and institutions have been created with this in mind, to avoid armed conflict. But what we see is this, And this is very strange and sad. What we see is this, that the very religion, that is Islam, whose holy book, the Holy Quran, which makes it incumbent upon its followers to set up such mechanisms, the countries that which say that we follow this code of practice, they're the ones who have no mechanism for such arbitration and reconciliation. And this is, we had the situation that we had in all of these countries. In Libya, in Tunisia, in Egypt, that people weren't prepared to sit down and talk to each other. But you see, the difficulty is this. The verse says, if two parties of the believers. So what do Muslims start off with? They start off by saying, well, I'm a Muslim and he's not. And this is exactly why. This is such a dangerous weapon to hand to the people of this world, that this is exactly why the Holy Quran said, if someone says, assalamu alaikum, well, that's enough. This is exactly why the Holy Prophet said that if someone eats our slaughtered meat, he prays like us, then that person is to be regarded as a Muslim. What more he believes and doesn't believe and do and does not do is not our business. That will be decided by God on the Day of Judgment. And this is the argument these people use. Well, I'm a Muslim, he is not a believer. Why is he not a believer? He hasn't got a beard. Why is he not a believer? He doesn't cover his head when he prays. Why is he not a believer? His trousers are not the right height above his ankle. You name it, the excuse is there. He is not a believer because during Salat, after Fatiha, he says Ameen in a loud voice. You are laughing. You are laughing. And you're quite right to laugh. It is laughable. And these are the reasons, for which people call each other heretics, infidels, outside the fold of Islam in the Muslim majority countries. And then they say, well, this verse doesn't apply because I am a Muslim, he's a heathen, an infidel, so, no one has to reconcile us. And this is why. See, I marvel at the foresightedness of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. We all know that in the middle of a battle, a Muslim threw down an enemy soldier, and as he was about to kill him, the man recited the kalima, the shahada, the profession of Muslim faith. And the Muslim still killed him. And when the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he heard about this, it is said that he was so angry and he was so grieved. And he kept on saying, who gave you the right to kill a man who recited the kalima? That the person who had done it says, I wish my mother had never given me birth so that I was responsible for causing such grief to the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And although we agree with many things that Saudis have done and do, but they were approached and they were told that this is some years ago, many years ago, and they were told to declare that Ahmadis, both Lahoris and Qadianis, actually especially Qadianis, are Kafirs. So the Saudi king asked just one question. Do they pray in the same direction that we do? Do they face our Qibla? I said, yes. Okay. Do they pray like us? Yes. Do they slaughter their animals the way we do? Yes. So he said, well, if they do all these things, then what right do I have to say to them that you're not Muslims, you're heretics, you're kafirs? And he refused to do that. Now, if you look at any of these groups, whether in Libya or anywhere, whether in Pakistan, people who blew up or tried to blow up Karachi International Airport, those who committed this heinous crime and killed some 30 people, do they follow the same Qibla? Do they pray like us? Do they slaughter their animals like us? Yes. So what about the people they killed, whom they call heretics and whatever else? Do they do the same things? Yes. So what justification do they have, considering that these are the specific instructions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad? And we again have this sad situation in Iraq now. Perhaps I should speak sometime, give a khutbah sometime on how this situation has arisen, where it was the British and the French to carve out their empires after the First World War. They created this problem, dividing people and tribes and so on. But anyway, but we have this situation in Iraq. And what we see is, who's worried? We see on television President Obama making statements. We see on television David Cameron making statements. We see on television programs about what's going to happen in Iraq and who's going to do what, and if these people who've captured parts of Iraq bordering Syria, if they move down and capture Baghdad, what is going to happen? But we don't appear to have anything or any movement from Muslim leaders and Muslim countries. We don't see Muslims themselves making an effort to try and resolve these issues. And you know, there is one thing that Hazrat Usman Raziyallahu Ta'ala said. That was basically the first example. Actually, it goes back to Hazrat Umar, when he was attacked and he lay dying. The first question he asked was, who attacked me? Who tried to kill me? Was it a Muslim or a non-Muslim? And when he was told it was a non-Muslim, he thanked Allah. Because he said if a Muslim had attacked him and killed him, that would have divided the Muslims in two and created disunity. So he was glad that it wasn't a Muslim who'd done this. And then we carry on to Hazrat Usman, when there was an armed insurrection against him in Medina, and the rebels broke into Hazrat Usman's house, and they were about to kill him, and he said, I advise you not to kill me. I advise you not to kill me, not because I'm afraid of dying, but if you kill me today, then after, this nation, this ummah, will never unite again. And look how true and prophetic his words were. And this has happened in all these countries, that they're killing each other and they don't realize that that deepens disunity. They killed my father, so I'm going to kill their brother. They killed my brother, so I'm going to kill their son. They killed my son, so I'm going to kill their husband. And so it continues. And this small conflict that starts carries on and on and on and on, sometimes for long periods of time, as we've seen. The disruption in Middle East has gone on for such a long time now. But we should also take a lesson in these troubles that arise. I gave you the example of Hazrat Usman. Then what followed was that Hazrat Ali and Amir Muawiyah came to blows after Hazrat Usman. And Amir Muawiyah was offered help from the surrounding countries. They said, let's have an alliance, we'll attack Ali, and when we win, well, you keep whatever Ali has and we'll take some part of it as well. And Hazrat Amir Muawiyah Razillah Ta'ala, his words are instructive for Muslims. He sent a message back to the king who sent him this offer of alliance. He said, this is a disagreement between brothers. If you attack Ali, you will find Muawiyah fighting in the first line of foot soldiers who are defending Ali's territory. And that is why that even though Muslims came to blows and they had these disagreements and so on, they still made progress and they were able to establish great territory and a great empire. But unless we put these mechanisms into place, then others will continue to take advantage of our disagreements and our quarrels, and it won't be in their interest to further this group's cause or that group's cause. What they want to further is their own cause. And we've seen this over and over again. And I end by just giving one example of how this happens. Americans flooded Pakistan with arms, ammunition, money. Who for? For the Mujahideen, for the freedom fighters. Why? Because Russia had occupied Afghanistan. And they wanted to humiliate Russians. They wanted to drive them out of Afghanistan. For many reasons. There were strategic global reasons and so on, but also the fact that Americans had sided with the North Vietnamese a decade before and helped them humiliatingly defeat Americans. And there may be people around, I hope there are, who remember the newsreels of how people were trying to clamber over American helicopters as they were leaving the American embassy's compound in Saigon, as it was called at the time. So when Americans flooded these Mujahideen, by the way, these people have been relabeled and repackaged and are now marketed as the Taliban and the terrorists. So when they were fighting and killing the Russians, they were freedom fighters. And now that they're fighting and killing the Americans, they're terrorists. But my point was, whose interest were they forwarding? Was it Pakistan's interest? Was it Afghanistan's interest? Was it Shia interest? Was it Sunni interest? Who benefited from this? It was the Western powers. And I don't criticize them, I don't blame them. Why should they do something to forward our interest? That is for us to do. Why do we blame them and say, oh, well, they did this to forward their own interest? They're quite right to do things which forward their interest and not ours. They don't owe us anything, even if they did. Everyone forwards, tries to safeguard his own interest and his own tries to get some geopolitical advantage for his own country and his own government. So we shouldn't blame them. And the same thing happened in Iraq. And the same thing has happened everywhere. Syria, Jordan, you name it. How did Iraq come into being? Because Britain and France wanted to further their own strategic interests during the First World War. And they incited Arabs to a rebellion against the Turks who ruled them. And it is sad that this has been going on, at least to our knowledge, so that we can see for certain history for over 100 years. And yet Muslims still cannot see or will not see. So until we learn the lessons of history, that when the Quran says that you act upon it, it's talking about the whole of it. Not just picking up bits and pieces here that suit us and doing those and ignoring the others. Early Muslims were successful because they acted upon the whole of the Holy Quran. This is what it means when it says it's a way of life, it's a deen. It's there for all time and all circumstances. That's what it means. But it is sad that Muslims cannot see that. And I wonder how long it will take them to realize that, as our Jamaat has always said, unless we go back to the Holy Quran, we'll continue to be humiliated in this world.